My name is Heather. I'm 34 years old, and if you ask me what defines my life, I'd answer in one word: Lucas, my son. He just turned 8, and everything I do, every decision I make, somehow circles back to him. Which is why, weeks before his birthday, I poured every ounce of love and hope into creating a dinosaur wonderland in our backyard. I'm not exaggerating when I say every detail mattered to me. I painted volcano backdrops late at night until my fingers cramped cut dinosaur footprints out of construction paper and hid fossil treasures in the sandbox. I even baked a 3-tiered stegosaurus cake, though I had to watch endless YouTube tutorials to get the frosting spikes right. For Lucas, this wasn't just a party. Dinosaurs were his latest obsession, and he'd been buzzing with excitement since our trip to the Natural History Museum. Each night, he counted down to his party, practicing his roars, memorizing facts about velociraptors and triceratops. And each night, I tucked him in whispering prayers into the quiet that maybe, just maybe this year, my family would finally show up for him. Because if I'm being honest, the shadow of disappointment has always lingered over family gatherings. My mother, Diane, and my younger sister, Amanda, have a pattern. Amanda was always the golden child, the ballerina, the beauty queen, the star student. I, on the other hand, learned to survive in her shadow. Even as adults, the favoritism never faded. It just shifted to the next generation. Sophia, Amanda's daughter, is treated like royalty. Lucas, meanwhile, has spent his childhood quietly learning to accept being overlooked. Still, I had hope. This year would be different, I told myself. I'd sent invitations to everyone with careful handwritten notes. I even added a personal plea in my mother's card: Lucas is counting down the days to see you. And her reply text: wouldn't miss it for the world. Sweetheart had lit a fragile flame of optimism inside me. The morning of the party, Lucas bounced onto my bed before sunrise. "Mom, it's party day," he squealed, already dressed in his explorer shorts and bright green dinosaur shirt. His hair stuck out in every direction, but his grin was dazzling. "Do you think Grandma remembered her camera?" She promised she'd take pictures of me naming all 50 dinosaurs. I smiled, smoothing his hair, even as a nervous knot tightened in my stomach. "I'm sure she did, buddy. Now let's get those birthday pancakes before we finish setting up." The next few hours flew by. Lucas helped me carry trays of sandwiches shaped like T-Rex skulls, carefully positioned paper eggs for the piñata, and ran around the backyard practicing his dinosaur roars. Every time he looked at the driveway, though, my stomach twisted. By 10:15, a message pinged on my phone. "Amanda, Sophia just got a last-minute audition for a commercial. Such an amazing opportunity. We can't miss it. Sorry, but we won't make it today. Lucas will understand it's important for her future. We'll make it up to him sometime." I felt my throat close. Lucas had wrapped a bracelet for Sophia with his own allowance money, whispering to me days earlier, "Do you think she'll like it, Mom?" How was I supposed to tell him this? I typed back, "Lucas will be really disappointed. He's been waiting to show her his dinosaur collection." Her reply came instantly. "These things happen. Sophia has to grab every chance she gets. I'm sure a kid's party won't be that exciting anyway. We'll drop a gift next time." The words stung like acid, but I shoved my phone into my pocket before Lucas noticed. "They're just running late," I lied, my chest heavy with guilt. By noon, the official start time, Lucas was stationed at the window encyclopedia clutched in his hands, ready to greet the first arrival. Every passing car made his eyes light up until it rolled past without stopping. He craned his neck to see further down the road, then pressed his face against the glass, whispering, "Maybe they got lost." At 12:30, my phone buzzed again. This time it was my mother. "Terrible migraine, sweetheart. Need to rest in a dark room. Tell Lucas happy birthday." No call, no offer to come later. Just a flat text. I stared at it numb before forcing a smile for Lucas, who asked, "Did Grandma say how long till she gets here?" "She's not feeling well," I managed, trying to soften the truth. "But she sends love." He nodded slowly, though confusion clouded his eyes. Then he turned back to the window. As the minutes dragged into hours, other excuses trickled in. From aunts and cousins, car trouble, sudden work, emergencies, stomach bugs. None of them offered to reschedule. None of them even called. At 1:30, Lucas tugged my hand. "Mom, maybe we should put more dinosaur footprints outside, so they know where to go." My throat burned, but I crouched beside him and helped tape more paper prints along the walkway. He carefully pressed them down, hope still alive in his small body, and I wished desperately I could protect him from what was coming. By 2 the reality became undeniable. No one was coming. The sandwiches dried on the platters. The goodie bags lined the doorway, untouched the piñata swayed silently in the breeze. Lucas stood at the window one last time before turning to me, his dinosaur book clutched tightly to his chest. "Mom," his voice was small, cracking like brittle paper. "Did I do something wrong? Why doesn't anyone want to come to my party?" My heart shattered. I knelt holding his trembling shoulders. "No, sweetheart. You did nothing wrong. Sometimes people, they make mistakes. They miss out on amazing things. Today they missed out on celebrating the most awesome 8-year-old paleontologist in the world." I forced brightness into my tone. "But you know what that means. More cake for us, and we can beat all the high scores on the games, just the two of us." Lucas tried to smile, brave as always, but the sparkle had left his eyes. We played the games, just the two of us. I chased him, shrieking at his pretend T-Rex attacks, let him win at fossil races, and sang happy birthday with enough force for a room full of guests. But when the sun dipped low and we cleaned up the untouched decorations, I caught him sitting alone at the gift table, staring at the small package wrapped for Sophia. "She didn't even want her present," he whispered, "and Grandma didn't want to see my dinosaurs." Tears slipped down his cheeks, and for the first time I didn't have the strength to hide my own. That night, Lucas fell asleep, clutching Sophia's unopened gift. I sat in the living room, surrounded by deflated balloons and silent decorations, and let myself finally break. Something in me shifted that night. I knew with chilling certainty that nothing about our family relationships would ever be the same again. The morning after Lucas's birthday, the backyard still looked like a ghost town of unplayed dreams. Paper dinosaurs sagged in the humid air, fossil dig stations sat untouched, and the cake, once a proud stegosaurus with buttercream spikes, leaned on itself as if it too had lost hope. I stood at the kitchen sink, rinsing plates that had never been used, and tried to silence the voice in my head. Why did you expect any different? Heather? Haven't you learned by now? But as I glanced into the living room where Lucas sat quietly sketching, I realized it wasn't about me anymore. The disappointment I'd endured my entire life had now been handed to him, and that was something I could no longer allow. Growing up, my sister Amanda had been the sun in our household, and I a planet orbiting around her glow. My mother adored her, showering her with attention gifts, praise. I remember one Christmas when I was 11. I had saved up to buy my mom a pair of gloves with my babysitting money. Amanda had hastily wrapped a scented candle. My mother opened both gifts at the same time. She held the gloves, briefly murmured thanks, then gushed over the candle for 15 minutes, telling Amanda how thoughtful she was. The gloves ended up in a drawer, forgotten. I never saw her wear them once. This wasn't a one-time memory, it was the pattern. Recitals, pageants, spelling bees. I was always the second thought, the background character in the drama of Amanda's perfect life. The cycle never broke, not even when we became mothers ourselves. Sophia, Amanda's daughter, inherited the crown, and Lucas inherited invisibility. Christmases were the worst. Sophia unwrapped iPads and designer clothes while Lucas sat beside her with clearance toys. He'd force a smile, but I saw the questions flickering in his eyes. Last Thanksgiving, Lucas spent hours crafting handmade cards for every relative. My mom barely glanced at his, then proudly taped Sophia's store-bought card to the fridge for months. Lucas had asked me once, "Do you think Grandma keeps mine in her room instead?" And I had lied, because what else could I do? Now, watching him sit with a pencil, not drawing dinosaurs, but shading in superheroes, I felt dread knotting my stomach. Dinosaurs had been his world. His joy and the silence around them was deafening. That Thursday, the phone rang at school while I was grading papers. Mrs. Bennett, his teacher, spoke in a hushed tone. "Heather, I wanted to check in about Lucas. He hasn't been himself this week. At recess, he plays alone. During group projects, he hangs back. When I asked if everything was okay, he just said, 'Sometimes people don't want to be around you, and that's okay.'" Her words sliced through me. My son, who once filled every room with laughter, was now repeating the very lessons I had swallowed as a child. Be quiet. Don't expect too much. Accept less than you deserve. That night, I found him lying on his bed, staring at the dinosaur poster he used to point at proudly. "Hey, buddy," I said softly, sitting beside him. "Not into dinos tonight." He shrugged. "Dinosaurs are for babies. Superheroes are cooler." His voice was flat, but his eyes lingered on the poster a second too long. I reached out, smoothing his hair. Lucas, you can love both, or neither, or whatever you want. You don't have to change just because. I trailed off, searching for words that wouldn't sound like excuses. He turned toward me, his small voice breaking me open. Is Grandma mad at me? Is that why she didn't come? Maybe because I don't have a dad, or because I'm not like Sophia. I swallowed hard. These were the very questions that had haunted me as a girl. Why wasn't I enough? And now history was writing itself again through my child. No, sweetheart, I whispered fiercely, pulling him into my arms. Grandma's choices have nothing to do with you. Nothing. You are amazing, just as you are. But even as I said it, doubt gnawed at me. Because if I'd believed that truth as a child, I wouldn't have spent decades chasing crumbs of love. That weekend, I decided I couldn't keep silent. I called my mother, trying to explain how deeply Lucas had been hurt. He waited at the window for hours, Mom. He had gifts for everyone. Do you have any idea what that did to him? Her voice was flat, almost annoyed. You're being melodramatic, Heather. Children need to learn disappointment early. It builds character. I bit back anger. Funny how Sophia has never had to build character by being ignored. She changed the subject quickly. That's different. Sophia faces rejection at auditions. She's learning resilience. You've always been too sensitive. It was the same script I'd heard my whole life. My pain dismissed Amanda's struggles, elevated my reality, invalidated. I hung up the phone with my hands shaking. Later that night, scrolling through social media, I saw a photo of my mom, Amanda, and Sophia at the mall, smiling with ice cream sundaes shopping bags at their feet. The timestamp 1:15 p.m. The exact time Lucas was still waiting by the window, clutching his book of dinosaur facts. I stared at the photo until my vision blurred. The betrayal wasn't just that they didn't show, it was that they chose something else. They chose each other. They chose ice cream and shopping while my son's heart was breaking. Something hardened inside me then, a slow, cold realization I had been making excuses for them my whole life. But no excuse could cover this. That night, Lucas crawled into my bed after a nightmare. Mom, he whispered. Shaking, I dreamed. I was at the museum, and everyone left me there. I was alone. No one came back. I held him tight, fighting tears in the dark. I'll never leave you, I promised. And silently I vowed something else. I'll never let them do this to you again. I didn't know it yet, but this birthday, this empty driveway wasn't just a turning point. It was the beginning of a war I hadn't realized I was already fighting. And for the first time in my life, I was ready to fight back. The nightmares began quietly like shadows slipping under Lucas's bedroom door. At first, I thought they were normal, childish fears, sparked by too much sugar, too many dinosaur roars before bedtime. But soon I realized these dreams weren't about monsters at all. They were about being left behind. One night I woke to his muffled crying. When I rushed in, I found him tangled in his sheets, sweat plastering his hair to his forehead. His eyes darted wildly as he whimpered, Don't leave me. Please don't leave me. I sat on his bed, gathering him in my arms. Shh, buddy. It's just a dream. I'm here. He pressed his face into my shoulder, his small voice breaking. In the dream, everyone went home, and I was still at the museum. The doors closed, and I was alone. No one remembered me. My chest ached. At 8 years old, his nightmares weren't about ghosts or villains. They were about abandonment. The next morning, he was quiet over breakfast, pushing his cereal around with his spoon. Finally, he asked Mom, Do you think Grandma doesn't love me? Maybe, because I don't have a dad. I nearly dropped my coffee mug. Lucas, no. Absolutely not. Having a dad or not has nothing to do with how much you're loved. But Grandma loves Sophia more, he whispered. Not looking at me. She buys her big presents. She goes to her stuff. She didn't come to my party. Maybe if I was better at sports, or got A's like Sophia. His voice cracked. I wanted to scream, to rage against the injustice of an 8-year-old, shouldering questions I'd been asking myself my entire life. Instead, I leaned across the table and took his small hands. Lucas, listen to me. You are perfect as you are. None of this is your fault. None of it. But deep down, a seed of doubt festered. What if he never believed me? What if my mother's cruelty became his truth? I couldn't stay silent anymore. That afternoon, I called my mother, my voice trembling with equal parts fury and desperation. Mom, Lucas cried himself to sleep. He thinks you don't love him. He thinks he did something wrong. Her sigh crackled through the line. Heather, you're being melodramatic again. He had a birthday party. Sometimes people miss events. Children need to learn disappointment early. It builds character. I clenched my jaw, Funny how Sophia has never had to build character that way. That's different, she snapped. Sophia has auditions, competitions. She gets rejected all the time. She learns resilience. And Lucas, he just learns he's not worth showing up for. Don't be so sensitive. You've always had a tendency to exaggerate small slights. Her words were a match tossed into gasoline. Decades of swallowed pain surged in me. It's not a small slight, Mom. It's my son's heartbreaking. Do you even care what that does to him? She went silent, then used her favorite weapon, guilt. I raised you better than this. Family should forgive. Don't hold grudges. I hung up, shaking but also strangely clear. Her patterns hadn't changed. They never would. Later that evening, Amanda called, her voice brisk and dismissive. Heather, I heard you upset Mom. Look, I'm sorry. Lucas was disappointed, but Sophia's audition was a big deal. You can't expect us to choose a kid's party over her career. Career, she's 15, I said, incredulous. Exactly. These years are critical. You wouldn't understand. Maybe if Lucas had real ambitions, you'd see it differently. Her words landed like the blade. He's 8, Amanda. His ambition is to show his cousin the dinosaurs he loves. She exhaled loudly. You're overreacting. Sophia faces rejection all the time. Lucas will be fine. He's resilient. You're just too sensitive. Sensitive. That word again, wielded like a weapon, the same word that had silenced me all my life. But what silenced me completely wasn't her voice. It was what I saw that night scrolling through Facebook. A photo popped up: my mother, Amanda, Sophia, and 2 of my aunts, all smiling at the mall food court. Shopping bags around their feet. Ice cream sundaes in their hands. The timestamp 1:15 p.m. The exact time Lucas was still at the window waiting. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. They hadn't just missed his party. They hadn't been sick or busy. They had chosen each other. They had chosen ice cream sundaes over my son. I remembered Lucas carefully wrapping that dinosaur bracelet for Sophia, whispering, "Do you think she'll like it, Mom?" He was still waiting when they were already laughing at the mall. A rage I'd never known before burned through me. For years I had explained away their cruelty. Mom's just tired. Amanda's just busy. Maybe next time will be different. But there was no excuse for this. None. I walked into Lucas's room that night, found him curled up with his unopened dinosaur book. He looked up, eyes hopeful. Did Grandma text you? Is she coming tomorrow instead? I swallowed the truth, the lie clinging to my tongue. Maybe another day, buddy, I said softly. It was the first real lie I'd told him, and it sliced me open. Because in that moment, I knew the truth. If I didn't protect him, he would grow up believing he was second best, just like I had. I kissed his forehead, whispering into the dark, "You won't live the life I lived, I promise." And in that promise, something inside me hardened. This wasn't just about Lucas's birthday anymore. It wasn't even about my mother or Amanda. It was about ending a cycle. The cycle ends now. By Monday morning, Lucas's teacher called again. This time her concern carried an edge of alarm. "Heather, I'm worried." He's quieter than usual, withdrawn. Today, during show and tell, he just sat there with his dinosaur encyclopedia on his lap. He didn't speak. The other kids teased him a little, and he just shut down. The words stung more than I wanted to admit. Lucas had always been a performer at heart, whether roaring like a T-Rex or reciting facts about prehistoric eras he lived to share. To hear that he'd gone silent, it was as if his light was dimming before my eyes. That evening, as I tucked him in, I made a decision. We needed help. Real help. Not more of my whispered reassurances, not more of my empty promises that Grandma loves you, she just forgets. We needed someone who could untangle this mess before it wrapped itself too tightly around his little heart. The following week, I booked an appointment with Dr. Reynolds, a child therapist recommended by a colleague. She welcomed Lucas with a warm smile and a room full of puzzles, art supplies, and shelves of picture books. Lucas eyed the dinosaur figurines on her desk and gave a small, cautious smile, the first I'd seen in days. I watched through the observation window as he began to talk, hesitant at first, but soon spilling words like stones tumbling down a hill. They didn't come. Not Grandma, not Aunt Amanda, not Sophia. They were supposed to. I waited, but no one came. Dr. Reynolds listened carefully, nodding, asking gentle questions. When Lucas whispered, "Maybe I'm not special," my throat closed. Afterward, when Lucas was in the waiting room building a Lego T-Rex, Dr. Reynolds sat across from me, her tone calm but firm. "Children are perceptive, Heather. He's internalized the absence. At this stage, he doesn't understand adult choices. He only knows that people he loves didn't show up for him. He believes it's a reflection of his worth. I nodded, blinking back tears. That's exactly how I felt as a child. She leaned forward. Then you understand how powerful this wound can become if left unaddressed. The good news is he has you an attentive, loving parent who sees his value. That's his anchor. But boundaries are crucial. If family members consistently undermine his self-worth, you may need to step back from exposing him to them. Her words echoed in my mind long after we left the office. Step back. Could I really cut ties with the very people I'd spent a lifetime begging love from? That night, memories I thought I'd buried resurfaced. I was 10, clutching the certificate for a writing contest I'd won. Amanda had just returned from a ballet recital clutching roses. Mom swept her into a hug, tears in her eyes. "My beautiful star," she cooed. When I shyly held out my certificate, she glanced at it for half a second. "That's nice, Heather. Put it on the fridge already overflowing with Amanda's medals." My certificate never even made it up there. It was always like that. Birthdays, school plays, milestones. My mother's praise was rationed, measured, scarce. And I learned early to live on crumbs. I told myself I was tough. I told myself I didn't need her approval, but I did. I always did. Now I saw the same hunger flickering in Lucas's eyes, and it terrified me. One evening after our second session with Dr. Reynolds, Lucas asked me, "Mom, is it okay if I don't tell Grandma about my new dinosaur club?" "Why not?" I asked cautiously. He looked down. "Because what if she says it's dumb, then I won't like it anymore. I don't want her to ruin it." His voice was so small, but the wisdom in it was enormous. At 8, he already understood what had taken me decades to see, that some people could poison the things you loved most. I pulled him close. "Buddy, you never have to hide what makes you happy from people who love you. If someone doesn't respect your joy, then maybe they don't deserve to share it." He nodded thoughtfully, but I could see the caution etched into him. He was learning to protect himself, not just from strangers, but from family. Meanwhile, Amanda sent me a text the following week. "Sophia is starring in the spring showcase. Front row tickets are $80 each, but of course family should come. Mom already bought 4. How many should I reserve for you?" I stared at the message, bile rising in my throat. Not a word about Lucas. Not a word about the birthday they skipped. Just an expectation that I'd show up, pay up, and clap like always. I typed back, "We won't be attending. Please don't reserve seats for us." Her response came quickly. "Seriously, you're punishing Sophia now. You're projecting your issues with Mom onto my daughter. Grow up, Heather." I didn't reply. For the first time, silence felt like power. But silence also carried a price. That weekend, Lucas had another nightmare. This time, he dreamed he was invisible, running down a street, shouting, waving, but no one turned to look at him. When I soothed him back to sleep, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. I realized this wasn't just about Lucas anymore. This was about me, about years of bending, twisting, and shrinking myself to fit into a family that never saw me. I had let my son inherit the very wound that had scarred my childhood. As the clock ticked past midnight, one truth solidified in my chest like iron. If I didn't break this pattern now, he would grow up believing invisibility was normal, and that was something I would not allow. Dr. Reynolds had said it clearly: boundaries. Protect him. Protect yourself. It sounded simple, but I knew it would come with a storm. 3 weeks after Lucas's birthday, life had started to regain a fragile rhythm. Tuesdays had become our special days, early dismissal from school library visits, and ice cream at the corner shop. Lucas was finally laughing again, showing me the fossil diagrams he'd copied from a new book. I began to believe maybe, just maybe, the wound would start to heal. Then my phone buzzed. A notification from the family group chat. My stomach tightened before I even opened it. The screen lit up with a glittering digital invitation, stars twinkling along the borders. Sophia posed, in a floor-length gown, her hair styled like a celebrity, on a magazine cover. Bold letters screamed, "Sophia's Sweet 16 Yacht Extravaganza." Beneath the headline were details that made my jaw drop: private yacht rental, a catered feast, a live DJ, even a rumored guest appearance from a pop star Sophia idolized. And then the kicker contribution, $1, $500 per person. Please Venmo to Diane by May the 1st. Additional gifts welcome but not required. For a moment I thought I'd misread. My heart pounded as I scrolled. At the bottom, a note from my mother. "Our precious Sophia deserves only the best for this milestone. Amanda and I have planned the perfect celebration. Heather, we'll need your help with decorations. Sophia requested your artistic touch for the photo backdrop. Everyone else, please, RSVP with payment promptly. Not a single word about Lucas's birthday. Not a hint of apology for their absence. Just a demand for money I didn't have, and labor they assumed I'd provide for free. I stared at the phone, my hands trembling. Lucas looked up from his ice cream, noticing. Mom, you look weird. What's wrong? I forced a smile. Just a message. Nothing you need to worry about. But inside, fury collided with grief. 3 weeks earlier, they couldn't spare 2 hours for a backyard party. They couldn't bring themselves to call to show up to make a child feel loved. Yet now they expected me to hand over more than a month's rent for an event dripping in luxury. As I sat there, messages from other relatives flooded in. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Our princess deserves everything. Just sent payment. The same people who had texted excuses about car trouble, stomach bugs, or urgent work calls were suddenly falling over themselves to contribute to Sophia's yacht party. The hypocrisy was staggering. A private message from Amanda popped up moments later. Mom says you haven't replied yet. Don't procrastinate. You know how she gets. Sophia really wants the backdrop to look like that Netflix show she loves. You're still the artsy one. Consider this your assignment. Not a request, a command. Not will you help, but you will. I stared at the screen, anger bubbling hot and sharp in my chest. My son had stood by the window in his dinosaur shirt, waiting for family that never came. He had clutched a bracelet he bought with his allowance, asking if Sophia would like it. And now they expected me to spend $1,500 to celebrate the same girl who couldn't even bother to show up for him. I thought of Lucas's brave smile as he blew out candles alone. The nightmares. The question that still haunted me. Why doesn't Grandma love me? I opened my Venmo app. My finger hovered over the keypad. I typed $1. In the notes, I wrote a single word, congratulations. Send? It was symbolic. A fraction of what they demanded, equal in value to what they had given my son, nothing. For the first time in years, I felt power surge through me. Not rage, not despair, just clarity. That night, Lucas sat at the kitchen table, sketching another dinosaur scene. Do you think Sophia will like her birthday? He asked innocently. I swallowed hard. I'm sure she'll have the party she wants. Do you think we'll go? I paused, watching him carefully shade the spikes of a stegosaurus. Maybe not this time, buddy. Sometimes we need to spend our time with people who truly make us feel special. He nodded slowly, as if considering something far beyond his years. Like Tyler and his mom. Exactly, I whispered. Later, after Lucas went to bed, I sat at the table staring at the flickering candle of a single tea light. My phone buzzed again. Amanda, this time angrier. What was that $1? Are you mocking us? This is Sophia's big day, Heather. Stop being selfish. Pay your share, do your part. Family comes first. Family comes first. The words echoed in my head like a cruel joke. If family came first, my son would not have cried himself to sleep. If family came first, they would have shown up when it mattered. Instead, family meant bending to their expectations, emptying my pockets, and swallowing my pride again and again. But that night, with the single tea light flickering in the dark kitchen, I knew something had shifted. The balance of power had tilted, and for once it tilted toward me. The $1 wasn't just a gesture, it was a declaration. This cycle ends here. The morning after I sent that symbolic $1, I woke with a strange clarity. For years, I had lived with a knot of anxiety in my chest, always bracing for the next slight, the next dismissal. But now there was a stillness inside me. Not peace exactly, more like the silence before a storm. I made a list over coffee, call the locksmith, block numbers, document everything. For once, my to-do list wasn't about survival, it was about defense. When the locksmith arrived that afternoon, he was a kind man with weathered hands. New locks, he asked, setting down his toolkit. Yes, I said firmly, front and back. I don't want anyone with an old key walking in anymore. He nodded without judgment, though his raised eyebrow told me he'd seen this kind of thing before. When the last lock clicked into place, I felt an odd thrill of control. For years, my mother had walked into my home as though it belonged to her, opening cabinets, criticizing the clutter, rearranging Lucas's drawings on the fridge without permission. Now, for the first time, the doors were mine. Truly mine. That evening, I sat Lucas down at the kitchen table. He was building a dinosaur out of Legos, his tongue poking from the corner of his mouth in concentration. Buddy, I began carefully. Remember how we've talked about family being the people who show up, the people who make us feel good? He looked up, blinking behind his glasses. Yeah. Well, I've decided we need a little space from Grandma and Aunt Amanda, just some time apart so we can focus on the people who treat us with kindness. He frowned slightly. Because they didn't come to my party. Partly, I admitted, but also because they keep making choices that hurt us, and I want us to spend our time with people who lift us up, not tear us down. Lucas tilted his head, considering. Like rules at school. Mrs. Bennet says rules aren't to be mean, they're to keep things fair. Relief swept through me. Exactly like that. These are our family rules. We choose who gets to be close to us based on how they treat us. He nodded, slowly returning to his Lego project. Okay. Can Tyler's mom be family? I smiled. Absolutely. She shows up. That night, I blocked my mother's number. Then Amanda's. Then several aunts and cousins who had chimed in with guilt-laden messages about Sophia's yacht party. Each time my chest tightened, guilt, fear, doubt, but also loosened, as if invisible chains were snapping one by one. For the first time in decades, I could hear silence without it being filled by my mother's voice. But silence didn't last long. Within hours, the emails began. Subject lines filled with urgency. We need to talk immediately. Stop acting like a child. You're hurting Sophia. I didn't respond. By the weekend, my phone buzzed with voicemails from unknown numbers. One was Amanda, her voice dripping with venom. You think you're so special with your boundaries. Mom is devastated. Sophia is in tears. Everyone's talking about how selfish you are. You have 3 days to apologize and send the money before Mom takes action. Action. The word slithered into my gut like ice water. What action? I sat at the table late that night, my journal open, writing every detail I could remember: the missed birthday, the mall photos, the yacht party, demand, Amanda's threat. I attached screenshots, emails, texts. Dr. Reynolds had been right, document everything. But still unease grew, because when Amanda said Mom takes action, I knew from a lifetime of experience Diane didn't bluff. She manipulated, she twisted, she escalated. The storm was coming. Meanwhile, Lucas began to notice the shift. Grandma hasn't called, he said one evening, almost casually. No, she hasn't, I answered carefully. He hesitated, then asked, Did she get mad at you? Maybe, I admitted. But remember our rule, we spend time with people who treat us well. If someone breaks that rule, even Grandma, then we need to step back. He nodded, but his eyes lingered on the unopened gift he had wrapped for Sophia, still sitting on his shelf. The manipulation reached a new pitch when relatives I hadn't spoken to in months began reaching out. A cousin messaged, Your mom is heartbroken. She says you're unstable, shutting everyone out. What's going on? Do you need help? The implication was clear. If I didn't play along, they'd paint me as unstable, unfit, dramatic. It was the same tactic my mother had used on me since childhood, now weaponized with the full weight of extended family behind it. And yet, something in me had changed. Their words still cut, but they no longer dictated my reality. For once, I could see the game being played, and I was no longer afraid to flip the board. On Sunday night, as Lucas brushed his teeth, I stared at myself in the mirror. My reflection looked older, harder, but steadier. This is the breaking point, I whispered to my own face. You don't get to go back from here. You don't get to crumble, because he's watching. He needs you strong. I didn't know yet what Diane's action would look like. But I knew this. I had changed the locks, I had blocked the numbers, and I had drawn the line. And crossing it would unleash a battle none of us could take back. The knock came on a Wednesday morning, sharp and deliberate. I was grading papers at the kitchen table when the sound jolted me. Through the peephole, I saw 2 uniformed police officers standing on the porch. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My mind scrambled through possibilities: an accident at school, a neighbor complaint. When I opened the door, the taller officer spoke first. Are you Heather Anderson? Yes, I said cautiously. I'm Officer Rivera, and this is Officer Bennett. We're here for a welfare check. Your mother, Diane Lewis, called in with concerns about your mental well-being and the welfare of your child. The words hit me like a physical blow. My legs nearly buckled. What? Officer Rivera consulted a notepad. She reported that you've been acting erratically, changing your locks, cutting off family contact, making concerning statements. She's worried you may not be able to provide safe care for your son. My pulse thundered in my ears. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was my mother's action. Officers, I said, forcing calm into my voice, I can assure you both that I am completely capable of caring for my son. There are no safety concerns here. I recently set boundaries with certain family members because their behavior was hurtful. That's all. But if you'd like to come inside, I'll gladly show you our home. They exchanged glances, then nodded. As they stepped inside, I felt shame coil in my stomach. Not because I had anything to hide, but because my mother had dragged strangers into my living room, twisting the narrative so I looked unstable. "Your son is at school," Officer Bennett asked, glancing at the family calendar on the wall. "Yes," I said, pointing to his neat schedule of activities. "Perfect attendance, thriving academically. You can check with his teacher if you'd like." I walked them through the house, the tidy kitchen, the stocked pantry, Lucas's room lined with dinosaur books and Legos. His drawings covered the refrigerator bold colors declaring his passions. "This is hardly the home of neglect," I said softly, my throat tight. The officers nodded. Officer Rivera's voice softened. "We understand family disputes can get complicated, but from what we see, there's no cause for concern. I would suggest keeping documentation of interactions with your family. If this escalates, you'll want a record." Relief and humiliation crashed together in my chest. "I've already started," I admitted, pulling a folder from the drawer. Screenshots of texts, printed emails, notes from therapy sessions, proof of the birthday that never happened, the yacht party demands, Amanda's voicemails. Officer Bennett raised his eyebrows. "You've been thorough. Smart." He handed me his card. "If you face further harassment, call me directly." When they left, I locked the door and collapsed against it, trembling. My mother hadn't just ignored my son's birthday. She hadn't just dismissed his feelings. She had tried to use law enforcement as a weapon, a way to intimidate me into compliance. For the rest of the day, I couldn't focus at work. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured Lucas being questioned, my competence as a mother, doubted my custody, threatened. Diane hadn't just crossed a line, she'd burned the bridge. That afternoon, when I picked Lucas up from school, he bounded toward me, his backpack bouncing. "Mom, guess what Tyler brought a fossil kit today? We found ammonites." I forced a smile, hiding the storm inside me. "That's amazing, buddy." But then I saw her. Across the parking lot, Diane's car pulled in, Amanda in the passenger seat, both of them stepping out, walking toward us with determination. "Lucas, honey," I said quickly, crouching to his level. "I need you to get in the car and put on your headphones. Watch your dinosaur show, okay?" His eyes flicked to the approaching figures. "Is Grandma mad?" "Just grown-up stuff. You'll be safe in the car." He obeyed, climbing into the back seat. I locked the doors before turning to face the two women I had spent my life trying to please. "How dare you?" Diane hissed the moment she reached me. Her voice was low, sharp, venomous. "Blocking our numbers. Changing your locks. Sending $1 as an insult. And now ignoring Sophia's party. Do you have any idea how you've hurt this family?" Around us, other parents lingered, curious glances flicking our way. I lowered my voice. "You called the police on me, Mom. You told them I might be unfit. Do you have any idea what you risked? What that could have done to Lucas?" "That was a wellness check," she snapped, unrepentant. "I was worried. You've been acting unstable." I laughed bitterly. Unstable, or simply unwilling to bend anymore. Amanda stepped forward, her face flushed with indignation. "You're ruining everything, Heather. You're ruining Sophia's big day, you're making Mom cry, and you're dragging Lucas into drama he doesn't need. You're jealous of me, of Sophia, of how Mom loves us." The words hung heavy in the air. The truth I had always felt but never heard spoken aloud. I met her eyes calm now. "You're right. Mom does love you more. She always has. And she loves Sophia more than Lucas. You've made that clear for 8 years. But I'm done pretending otherwise, and I'm done exposing my son to it." Diane's eyes darted nervously to the parents watching nearby. "We are not having this conversation here. Come to my house tonight. We'll sort this out like adults." "There's nothing to sort out," I said, steel in my voice. "Lucas and I are stepping back until there's real change. No more crumbs of affection. No more pretending. No more manipulation." Her eyes narrowed. "You can't keep my grandson from me. I have rights." "Not the ones you think you do," I said coldly. "And sending police to my door with false claims, that only strengthens my case if you try." Amanda lunged forward, grabbing my arm, her nails dug in. "This isn't over. You think you can cut us off and come out clean? You'll regret this." I pulled free, my voice steady. "Maybe. But I'd regret far more letting Lucas believe this is what family looks like." As I walked to my car, Diane's voice rang out shrill and desperate. "You'll regret this, Heather. When you have no family left, you'll realize what you've thrown away." I didn't turn back. Lucas looked up as I slid into the driver's seat, worry shadowing his young face. "Is Grandma mad at us?" he asked quietly. I forced a smile, though my heart pounded. "She's upset. But remember what we talked about. Family is the people who show up. And right now we're focusing on the ones who make us feel loved. He nodded, still uncertain, like Tyler's mom. Exactly, I whispered, gripping the steering wheel. As we drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror. My mother and sister stood in the parking lot watching us leave. Two figures I once thought I couldn't live without now shrinking in the distance. But I knew this was only the beginning. If my mother was willing to call the police, what would she do next? The storm hadn't passed. It had only started. The school parking lot buzzed with the everyday chaos of dismissal. Children spilling out of classrooms, parents chatting by cars, the squeal of sneakers on asphalt. But to me, it felt like a stage. And on this stage, my mother and sister stormed forward like actors in a drama they had rehearsed for years. Amanda's heels clicked against the pavement. Diane's mouth was set in a line so sharp it could cut glass. I positioned myself between them and the car where Lucas sat with his headphones on, eyes glued to his dinosaur show. At least he was shielded from what was coming. "How dare you?" Diane hissed again, stepping too close, her perfume stinging my nose. "Blocking us, changing your locks, humiliating us with that pathetic $1 stunt. Do you have any idea how much pain you've caused this family?" Pain. My voice trembled at first, but steadied. "You ignored your grandson's birthday. He waited hours for you, and while he cried, you were eating ice cream at the mall. Tell me again who's causing pain here." Her eyes darted, searching for control. Around us, parents slowed their steps, pretending not to listen while their ears tilted our way. Amanda jumped in her voice, sharp as glass. "You're obsessed with your victim act, Heather. This has nothing to do with Lucas. You've always been jealous of me, of Sophia, of how Mom loves us more. Admit it." The words sliced through the air, unfiltered, undeniable. My breath caught, but strangely I didn't flinch. Instead, I felt a bitter laugh rise inside me. "There it is," I said quietly. "The truth I've felt my whole life finally spoken out loud." Amanda faltered her mouth, opening and closing. Diane's face hard in panic, flickering beneath her mask of control. "You do love her more, Mom." I continued, my voice low but strong. "You always have. And now it's Sophia over Lucas. You don't even try to hide it. The only difference is I'm not willing to pretend anymore." The murmurs of nearby parents grew louder. A woman I recognized from the PTA shifted uncomfortably, clearly realizing this was no ordinary squabble. Diane's voice rose sharp with fury. "Enough. This ridiculous grudge of yours ends tonight. You're embarrassing yourself. Come to my house after dinner. Apologize. Send the proper contribution for Sophia's birthday. Return to this family like an adult or regret it." I shook my head slowly. There's nothing left to sort out. My boundaries are clear. I won't pay to celebrate the child you exalt while mine is treated like a burden. I won't expose Lucas to your cruelty anymore. If protecting him embarrasses you, that says more about you than me. Amanda's face reddened, her voice trembling with rage. "You've always been jealous, Heather. Jealous that Mom chose me. Jealous that Sophia shines while Lucas doesn't. That's why you're tearing us apart. You can't stand being second best." Her words echoed like a confession, ugly and raw, and for once I didn't deny it. "You're right," I said, my voice steady. "I was jealous. As a child, I begged for crumbs of love you got by default. I prayed Mom would look at me the way she looked at you. But I'm not a child anymore, and I won't let my son inherit that same hunger." For a moment, silence stretched across the parking lot. Even the kids seemed quieter, sensing the storm in the air. Diane broke it, her tone shrill. "You can't keep my grandson from me. I have rights." I met her gaze with ice. "No, you don't. Grandparents' rights don't override a fit parent with full custody, and sending police to my door with false claims only strengthens my case if you ever try. You crossed a line you can't uncross." Her face paled, then flushed crimson. "Ungrateful girl. After everything I've done." "Everything you've done." My laugh was hollow sharp. "You mean decades of favoritism, teaching me I wasn't enough, ignoring your grandson while worshiping your granddaughter. If that's what you've done, then yes, I am ungrateful, proudly so." Amanda lunged forward and grabbed my arm, her nails biting into my skin. "This isn't over. You think you're strong with your little boundaries, but you'll regret this. You'll regret cutting us out." I pried her fingers off, calm now, eerily calm. "Maybe, but I'd regret far more teaching Lucas that this is love." I turned to leave, but Diane's voice followed, shrieking down the pavement. "You'll regret this, Heather. When you're all alone, you'll come crawling back. Family is forever. You can't erase us." I didn't turn. I didn't answer. When I slid into the driver's seat, Lucas pulled off his headphones. His wide eyes studied me. Mom, was Grandma really mad at you? She's upset, I admitted, softly forcing a steadiness I didn't feel. But remember our rule, family is the people who make us feel safe and loved. That's who we choose to keep close. He thought for a moment, then asked, so like Tyler's mom and Miss Janet from Dinosaur Club? I smiled faintly. Exactly, that's family. As we drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror. My mother and sister were still standing in the lot, their figures growing smaller, their faces twisted with fury. For the first time, I didn't feel small under their gaze. For the first time, I felt free. But freedom comes with consequences. And I knew this confrontation wasn't the end, it was the spark that would ignite the next fire. 2 days after the confrontation in the school parking lot, I came home to find a massive basket sitting on my porch. Wrapped in cellophane, tied with a gold bow, it brimmed with toys, electronics, and gift cards. A card sat on top, signed in careful cursive, from your loving family. The note inside read, "We miss you both. Let's put this misunderstanding behind us." I stood there in the doorway, staring at the basket, my stomach tightening. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even close. It was a transaction, an attempt to buy silence to erase what happened without ever acknowledging it. Lucas appeared behind me, eyes wide. Mom, is this? Because they missed my birthday. His innocence cut deep. I crouched beside him. No, sweetheart. This isn't an apology. This is them trying to make us forget without saying they're sorry. He frowned, thoughtful, in a way that startled me. But that's not how apologies work, right? Mrs. Bennett says we have to say sorry, not just give stuff. I pulled him into a hug, pride swelling in my chest. Mrs. Bennett is absolutely right. An apology means admitting you hurt someone, not covering it up with gifts. He pulled back, his brow furrowed. So, what do we do with all this? I hesitated, then asked gently, what do you think we should do? Lucas's eyes lit up with an idea. Could we give it to kids who don't have toys? Like a birthday present from me to them? Tears burned my eyes. My son, this boy who had been overlooked, dismissed, made to question his worth, still carried so much compassion inside him. That's a wonderful idea, buddy. We'll take it to the children's hospital this weekend. As we drove away the following Saturday with the basket in the trunk, Lucas grinned. This feels better than keeping it. And I knew he was right. But I also knew generosity wouldn't protect him from what was coming next. That Monday, I sat in a family attorney's office, my folder of evidence on the desk between us. The attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Ms. Collins, leafed through the pages with growing seriousness. So your mother called the police with a false welfare claim, she asked, her voice measured. Yes, officers came to my house. They found nothing wrong. But the fact that she'd even try, that she'd risk my custody, my voice cracked. Ms. Collins nodded slowly. This isn't just family drama. This is escalation. She's attempting to undermine your parental rights, based on what you've documented. Emotional manipulation, harassment, the police call. There's a strong case for a restraining order. The words landed heavy final. A restraining order. It sounded drastic, but so did everything my mother had done. By Friday, the court granted a temporary order. Holding that paper in my hand was surreal. It represented both failure and freedom. Failure of the family I'd tried to hold together. Freedom from the cycle that had nearly swallowed my son whole. The next weeks were quieter, though not free of drama. Diane and Amanda tried to reach me through third parties, neighbors knocking on my door with concern, cousins sending vague messages about forgiveness. But each time I held firm. The locks were changed, the numbers blocked, the line drawn. And in that silence, something unexpected began to grow. Tyler's mom invited us to dinner. Simple spaghetti and garlic bread, nothing fancy, but filled with warmth. Lucas laughed so hard he spilled juice across the table, and instead of scolding Tyler's mom, just smiled and tossed him a napkin. That's what happens when you tell dinosaur jokes during dinner, she teased. Lucas glowed under her easy affection. At school, Mrs. Bennett checked in with him daily, gently drawing him back into group activities. Slowly, he started raising his hand again, cracking jokes, showing off his drawings. And then there was Janet. My father's sister, who had lived across the country for years, called out of the blue. Heather, she said gently, I've been hearing things from relatives. I just want you to know I believe you. Your father worried about these patterns long before he passed. He'd want you and Lucas safe. Her voice cracked on that last word, and for the first time in weeks, I let myself cry, not from pain, but from relief. Janet began video calling with Lucas every Sunday. She asked about his dinosaur projects, sent him books and fossil kits. When she visited that summer, Lucas ran into her arms as though he'd known her his whole life. Watching them together, I thought, this is what family is supposed to feel like. But even as new bonds blossomed, shadows lingered. Social media filled with photos of Sophia's yacht party, glittering lights, extravagant gowns, relatives clinking champagne glasses on the deck. Caption after caption. The event of the year. Our princess deserves the best. I scrolled through the pictures late one night, Lucas asleep in the next room, and felt an ache I couldn't fully name. Grief maybe not for missing the party, but for the family I had always wished for and never had. The ache didn't last, because when I looked over at Lucas's artwork taped to the wall, bright dinosaurs with fierce grins and tiny captions like T-Rex loves cake, I remembered what mattered. I was no longer chasing a family that had never truly wanted me. I was building one of my own piece by piece, choice by choice. And for the first time, I felt something I hadn't in years. Hope. 6 months passed like a slow turn of seasons. What began in heartbreak slowly reshaped itself into something new, something sturdier. Lucas grew taller, his babyish roundness fading into the sharp lines of a boy, discovering his own strength. His laughter returned, hesitant at first, then fuller, brighter. He still had nights where shadows woke him, but more often now his dreams were filled with fossils museum trips and future adventures he wanted to take. For his half-birthday, we decided to celebrate differently. Instead of a backyard filled with ghosts of unkept promises, we rented a small room at the Natural History Museum. It wasn't extravagant, no yacht, no pop stars, no glittering lights, just Lucas, his closest friends from Dinosaur Club, a few school buddies, and people who had become our real support system. Tyler and his mom, my colleague Maria, and Aunt Janet, who flew in just for the occasion. The kids squealed with delight as they dug through the museum's interactive fossil pit, brushed dust off plaster casts of bones, and challenged each other with dinosaur trivia. Lucas beamed, his voice ringing out confidently as he explained the difference between a hadrosaur and an iguanodon to a group of wide-eyed kids. This, he whispered to me at one point, tugging my sleeve as we cut into a simple chocolate cake, is the best birthday ever, even though it's only a half one. And I believed him, because what mattered wasn't the decorations or the number of guests. It was that every person there wanted to be there, that every smile was real, that no one was missing because they had chosen someone else over him. That night, after the museum lights dimmed and Lucas fell asleep, with his dinosaur figurines scattered across the bed, I sat quietly in the living room. For the first time in years, the silence didn't ache. It felt safe. The restraining order had been extended. My mother and Amanda had tried emails through attorneys, messages through relatives, even a half-hearted letter couched in vague phrases like mistakes were made on both sides. But nowhere did they acknowledge the real wound. Nowhere did they say the words Lucas needed. I'm sorry. I should have been there. Instead, they demanded deflected, redirected blame. And so I held the line. Therapy became a rhythm. Lucas worked with Dr. Reynolds on building resilience, understanding that his worth wasn't tied to who showed up for him. I sat across from Dr. Chen, peeling back layers of my own childhood, the scars of being invisible, the desperate longing for crumbs of affection. The hardest part, Dr. Chen told me gently, is accepting that the mother you hoped for may never exist. But the healing comes when you realize you can stop chasing what she cannot give and start building what you and Lucas deserve. She was right. Slowly, the craving for my mother's approval faded. Not gone, not erased. Some wounds always throb, but dulled, no longer dictating every choice. Instead, I filled that space with something else chosen: family. Dinner nights at Tyler's house, afternoons in the community garden, Janet's steady presence through calls and visits. For the first time, Lucas and I weren't surviving. We were living. One evening, as we sat together planning the month's calendar, Lucas pointed at the dates circled in red. His 9th birthday. Mom, he asked, tentative, for my birthday this year. Can I invite my real family? My heart skipped. Your real family? He nodded, serious. Tyler and his parents. Miss Janet. Maria. The Dinosaur Club kids. You said family is the people who show up. They showed up. So they're family, right? Tears blurred my vision. I pulled him into my arms. Yes, sweetheart. They are. And yes, we'll invite all of them. It was such a simple sentence, spoken with the clarity only children can have. But in that moment, it struck me with the weight of generations. Lucas wasn't repeating my childhood story. He was rewriting it. There were still moments when doubt crept in. When I saw photos of Sophia's world, lavish parties, expensive vacations, adoring relatives, I felt a twinge of what I'd lost. But then I looked at Lucas confident and loved, surrounded by people who valued him, and I knew we hadn't lost anything. We had gained something far more precious: freedom. Because family isn't defined by blood, it's defined by presence, by love, by choice. As I tucked Lucas in that night, he clutched his favorite T-Rex plush and mumbled drowsily, "Thanks for choosing me, Mom." I kissed his forehead, whispering, "Always. You'll never have to wonder if you're enough. You already are." And for the first time, I believed it not just for him, but for me too. The cycle was broken. Yet as I turned off the light, I couldn't shake a final thought: my mother wasn't done. She had always thrived on control, and losing her grip on me and on Lucas was a wound she wouldn't let scab easily. Maybe she'd try again in court. Through relatives, through whispers in the community. Maybe she'd fade into silence. I didn't know which. But what I did know was this: whatever storm she brought, we were ready. Because we had built something stronger than her shadow. A family of our own making. A chosen family.